Hello friends, this is Odds. For those of you watching on YouTube, according to that one TikTok girl that knows everything. And for those of you that are watching this live, well, you don't need an introduction. I decided to do this on my Twitch live stream so that everyone has their say and we can all discuss it together. What I want to discuss and what I want to suggest is an overall nerf to the strength of certain offerings, certain items, and certain add-ons. We've been discussing a lot about the MMR, and one of the impressions I get from reading the complaints of different people, and obviously also my own feelings, is that it's sometimes not so much about the matchmaking itself, but rather what it makes people do. We hear people sweating, we hear people bringing the strongest things, and how this is not really fun. And right now, obviously, there's a lot of things that go into the outcome of each match. Your skill going into a match is important. The luck that you get is important. And how you play it out and the decisions you make is important. But sometimes when you bring certain really strong things, that is almost more important, right? If you play against a group of survivors that just brings, I don't know, something like this, it doesn't really matter what you do in the game. If you yourself did not bring something equally strong to this, you're most likely going to lose. Or at least you'll struggle a lot to barely tie. And I feel like that's a problem. I think there is a massive disparity between going into a lobby with a weak average killer with no add-ons or the strongest killer with the best add-ons and a map offering. Or playing against 4 survivors with fun, variety of perks, and going against survivors with the same meta perks and the strongest items. So my idea, and what I'm going to present and defend, is that we should nerf things across the board a little bit so that your decisions in the game make more of an impact than the items that you decided to bring. So let's go into this dark void together. First thing to address, map offerings. Map offerings right now have a 100% chance to work unless another map offering or a green hand cancels them. I think this puts too much power in the hands of whoever uses it. If you use it as a killer, you can pick a very strong killer with a tailored build and add-ons to send yourself to a particular map. And especially if you use it as a survivor fence, you can basically tell everyone in advance what items, builds, and everything they should bring to take advantage of it. The maps in this game are not balanced. One day they might be, but right now they're not balanced. So if you depend on the other team to send you to your worst map, that feels horrible. In my opinion, I've said this in the past, killers should not have a guaranteed chance to make the offering work. It should be 80% or something close. And the survivors should also have a similar deal, where if they're by themselves, 80%. If they're on a 2-man survivor fence, 60. If they're on a 3-man, less. If they're on a 4-man, less and less. And this would eliminate the situations where 4 players can afford to bring everything, and on top of that, decide which map they're going to play in advance. That's my take. You guys tell me how you feel about it. The next thing to address, keys. Keys have been a contentious issue in Dead by Daylight for a long time. However, they're going to be reworked into doing something else entirely in the future. So this one we're going to skip because we don't know what they're going to do. Next is flashlights. Flashlights do basically 3 things. You can blind the killer in chase to confuse them a little bit. You can rescue your teammates and make them escape the grasp of the killer. And against certain killers, they have utility applications. Blinding zombies, destroying hack traps, etc. In my opinion, and I think most people have agreed with me when I've asked this, flashlights are fine. Flashlights are completely fine. You could get into the finer details, maybe rework the add-ons, maybe look killer per killer, whether they are working as intended. But for the most part, if you have 4 survivors with 4 flashlights, that's what it should be. If they are good, they'll use them well. And very good survivors can use flashlights really well. If they're not good, or if they mess up, the item is worthless and does nothing. And it's not a guaranteed massive advantage from the get-go. On the opposite side of that, we have medkits. In my opinion, medkits are busted. They are incredibly powerful. If you think about it, being able to heal yourself in 16 seconds without the use of another teammate, maybe even faster if you hit skill checks. Keep in mind that skill checks make everything faster. Every time you hit a skill check, you save 0.8 seconds on a heal. Or double if it's a self-care. Not requiring another survivor for 16 seconds means that you can heal yourself anywhere, fast, conveniently, and basically save 16 seconds of efficient time. 16 seconds on a gen is insane. It's a lot of time that you are saving with a brown medkit. And the thing is, the medkits get better and better, and perks and add-ons make the medkits even stronger. Right now, having a lobby with 0 medkits or having a lobby with 4 medkits makes a huge difference. You hit a survivor, it takes you very little time. Let's say it takes you 10 seconds to hit a survivor. And then you realize that that survivor is in a bad spot, you cannot commit to them. And you go for someone else. He is going to heal himself in 10 seconds with a green medkit. So you've wasted 10 seconds, he's wasted 10 seconds, the other 3 survivors have had 10 seconds each to do gens, heal, whatever. Anytime there's a lot of medkits, you cannot commit. If you cannot commit to chases, people are healed in seconds. If you have 3 people injured and no one can go for the rescue, now you have pressure on the survivors. If they all heal themselves in 10 seconds, if you're not in chase, you have nothing. They are incredibly powerful. My idea right now is that their healing time should be a bit closer to self-care. Self-care is double. I suggest medkits should be baseline, somewhere in the middle. So it wouldn't take you 32 seconds to heal yourself, but it also wouldn't take you 16. It would be something in between. And the idea here is that if you want medkits to be very fast, you need to bring perks along with them. Right now, the best idea for medkits is to bring a medkit with a lot of charges that already heals you very fast by default. You don't use medkits to heal other people. Nobody does that. You only use them to heal yourself. And the idea is to bring the best perks for everything else, and you don't need extra perks to help make the medkits faster. Right now, you would be more encouraged if these changes were to go through. You still have 1 heal on the brown medkit, but it would take 24 seconds, not 16. You still have a heal and a half on the yellow one, but again, it would take that. And this would hopefully, this could even go along with changes that encourages you to use medkits on other people rather than on yourself. Survivors would have a bit more of an incentive to still group up and heal rather than only rely on medkits, which right now is the best idea. If you rescue a survivor, it's much better for them to use a medkit and for you to start doing a gen immediately. It's just more efficient. It's just better typically. So yeah, using medkits right now on yourself is the meta. I think that should not be as strong as it is. My opinion. Medkits are fine already. We'll debate that. The other thing that I find problematic with the medkits is their add-ons, and we discussed this the other day. This is the best compromise I've been able to find without changing them entirely. The styptic agent and the syringe are both really strong. The syringe, you pop it last second, it consumes your medkit, and in 16 seconds you are healed. During those 16 seconds you can do a gen, you can heal someone else, you can open a gate, you can do whatever you want, which makes your heal basically for free and perfectly efficient. You could even use it in chase if you're lucky enough, and the killer has little they can do unless they're the kind of killer that can catch you consistently in under 16 seconds, which is not always easy in some maps. In my opinion, make this one 32 seconds. You use this at a time where you think the killer won't interrupt you, and it's a good add-on that will heal you for free without doing anything, but it will take a long time. And as for the styptic, it gives you an 8-second window of invulnerability. I think it should be lowered to 5, so that you can use it in a clutch, but you cannot use it almost anywhere and have 8 seconds. Like in 8 seconds, a survivor can make it quite far, so it's a very minor buff. Just lower it to 5 seconds, make the window of utility a little bit narrower. I also agree with the idea that someone suggested that these add-ons should consume charges and require charges. You cannot just slap this on a brown medkit and then use it at the end, or slap it on a purple medkit and use the whole medkit and then at the end use this. You would need to reserve some charges for it. That's the way I see it. I still think that even with these changes, these 2 add-ons would be really strong. The idea is that if you have 3 or 4 people with these add-ons, it should not be a complete losing game. that these add-ons would have a bit more counterplay. Because if one of these add-ons is used in chase, the killer has a bit more of a chance to stop it. Right now, it is a little bit tough. So just making it so that if you have 4 of these on your lobbies, you don't have a completely losing battle ahead. That's the idea with all the changes. As for the maps, I think the maps could actually be a little bit stronger in some ways. They only have a range of 8 meters. So tracking things like the exit gates, the generators, it's kind of useless because within 8 meters, you basically see them yourself. So I would make their tracking distance 12 meters by default. I would nerf the add-ons accordingly to compensate so that they are the same as they were before if you use them individually. And there's also a yellow add-on that makes you track exit gates within 8 meters. And this add-on is worthless because if you're within 8 meters of an exit gate, you literally cannot miss it. So I think this add-on could pre-track the exit gates automatically on whatever map you put it on. So it would be like having Wake Up. Instead of tracking it yourself, it comes pre-tracked. So that'll be interesting. Now we get to toolboxes. Toolboxes by themselves are not typically the biggest deal. As you can see here, sabotages aside, the toolboxes don't save you that much time. A brown toolbox will save you 5 seconds on a gen. The best toolbox will save you 10 seconds on a gen. You might think that that's not a lot. The problem is this starts to add up really quickly. If you have a really strong toolbox and you add the best add-ons to it and you bring Proof Thyself, maybe other perks to help along, and then you factor in the fact that toolboxes increase the chance to get skill checks. Some of these toolboxes can shave 20 or 25 or 30 seconds off a gen, and that is nuts. That is insane. The strongest toolbox in this game absolutely break the game. When people ask me if I think gen rushing exists and this and that, I typically don't agree. Because I think that if the maps were balanced and you didn't have a 6-minute chase, you could probably stop gens. But when you consider some of the strongest toolboxes, I think they get pretty insane. And it's hard to balance the rest of the game around these toolboxes. Nothing else in this game can be balanced, in my opinion, if some of these toolboxes remain the way they are right now. So here's my idea to change them. Tell me what you think. We introduced the concept of a full repair. A full repair is a different progress bar that starts along or behind the current progress of the generator. So instead of just having one progress bar, you basically have 2 progress bars going all simultaneously. And what a full repair does is basically it tells you what the floor of the repairs is. The generator can never regress back from the blue part that you fully repaired. So how it works is basically with some of these toolboxes, for example, the brown one, the brown toolbox does not make you repair the generators any faster. The only thing it does, maybe with add-ons it could, but the only thing it does as a base is give you a 10% of base full repair. And when you have that 10%, if you leave the generator and the killer kicks it or the killer has ruin, the gen will only regress back to 10%. It will never go under 10%. So toolboxes would become items that you use in the early game rather than to completely destroy a gen in 20 seconds, but to secure the first progress. Would that stack? It would stack with other toolboxes if multiple people bring it. So right now, with the way toolboxes work, right? It basically goes like this. 2 survivors jump on a generator with Prove Thyself and a strong toolbox. Then the killer shows up and chases them off, and the killer has to win. That gen goes back to 0. They failed. The killer doesn't show up, then the gem pops in 25 seconds because, you know, Prove Thyself and strong toolboxes. So it's a very binary, either have ruin or pop and show up on time, or don't show up in 20 seconds and the gem pops. And I think that's pretty ridiculous. So how it would work like this, if 2 survivors bring toolboxes, they can do 20%, let's say, full repair. And then if the killer shows up, the killer will never be able to regress that 20%. They can leave that generator, they can go rescue, they can go do totems, they can do whatever, and the killer will never be able to regress it back from 20. If the survivors go absolutely nuts, maybe they can bring multiple toolbox on one gen and make a gen be base full repair to like 30 or 40%. And the killer will never be able to regress it from 40. But at that point, they have spent 3 or 4 toolboxes to do that, as opposed to spending 2 toolboxes to completely destroy it. So it would be a bit of a strategy, right? At the start of the match, you spend 10 seconds on a gen that you know are never going to be able to be outdone from the killer. But that's it. You don't do the gen any faster. And if the killer completely ignores that gen and lets you complete it, then you've wasted your time doing that because it didn't matter anyway. So it adds a bit more of a strategy, and it makes perks like Ruin a little bit weaker early on. Right now, you start a gen, you do 10 seconds, that's Ruin, you leave, Ruin completely eats it up. With this mechanic, you could counter that to a degree. But as you can see, most of the toolboxes do not make you do gens any quicker. And the nice thing about this is that if the gen speeds are more normalized, then you can do other things in balance. You can look at Ruin and see if it's too strong or too weak. You can look at Pop and see if it's too strong or too weak. You can look at base regression and see if it's too strong or too weak. And you don't need to account for the stupid toolboxes that break anything. Right now, you look at Pop or Ruin against some of the best toolboxes, they are garbage. You know what I mean? So my idea would be to basically almost entirely remove the speed boost from toolboxes and give them a utility in the form of the full repair, which is, you know, a completely made up name that could be named to anything else. So that's for toolboxes. As for killer add-ons that are busted, I think it's really, really hard to figure out if a killer should be nerfed or buffed if one of the add-ons is a little bit too strong or a little bit too transformative in a bad way. These are the add-ons that I've consulted with you guys that I would change myself because they are too strong. And it is difficult to balance the killer while these add-ons still exist. The first one is the Mother Daughter Ring. It makes the spirit move at what, 246 compared to survivor speed. It's a ridiculous add-on. It doesn't remove the scratch marks entirely. It only removes the ones that spawn after you begin phasing. So if you're going to keep this add-on as it is, I think the best suggestions are to remove scratch marks entirely, like the other add-ons, and to remove the passive phasing so that survivors who are attentive figure out that this add-on is in play. As for the Engineer's Fang, many people believe that Cenobite is weak unless they use this add-on. I don't know if I agree, but what I know is that if you become a really good Cenobite, Engineer's Fang is disgustingly strong, and it is miles above any other add-on almost in the game. In my opinion, it should have a downside to counter its really, really big upside, and that downside could be it spawns one fewer chain when they are already injured. And then if the Cenobite is too weak with that, then you buff him elsewhere. Tombstone Piece, I don't think it needs much of an introduction. You stalk 2 people a little bit, and then you can murder someone without even hooking them. I think this add-on is stupid. It's probably not healthy for the game. It's probably not fun to be stabbed by it. I guess the best thing you could do is maybe make it only work if survivors have been hooked once, or maybe make it only work if the survivor is fully stalked. I don't know. Give it some condition. Right now it's a little bit too unfair. Then we have the Pinky Finger on Clown. Now, Clown is not a killer that's OP by any means, but if you ever had to buff him, then this add-on would be a problem. That's why I think it should go. In its current form at least. Make it so that you lose 2 bottles. If you want to run this add-on, you only have 2 bottles, and if you want to, you can use your other add-on slot to bring the whiskey bottle. I believe it's called what is it called, guys? The gym bottle? The one that makes you spawn with 2 extra bottles. So that you can have 4 bottles and the insta-down. You cannot have 6 bottles and insta-down. That one's ridiculous. And after that is the Alchemist Ring. The Alchemist Ring makes it so that when the Blight successfully hits you with his power, he basically has no recharge. He gets all of his power back. This is kind of ridiculous with some of his other add-ons. So he can be very, 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 very fast. Be very oppressive, hit you, and then no matter the distance you make, he can catch up immediately with the Alchemist Ring. For a purple, I think it's busted. Even people that play Blight a lot will agree. instead of giving you all of your charges back, it should only give you 2 instead of 5. And that would mean that if you use your charges well, you can use it again almost immediately. But if you have wasted all of them, you have to wait at least a few seconds. So if the survivor plays well and makes you exhaust multiple rush tokens, they actually have a bit of a window to outrun you after the hit, rather than they play well, they make you use all of your rush tokens, and then you immediately have them again no matter what. Many other killers would need buffs, don't take me wrong. Many other killers would need to be looked at. And there's a lot of perks that we haven't discussed. We made a video with Cope talking about all the perks that need to be buffed. And I'm sure I don't even need to mention the ones that need to be nerfed. And yeah, without going into specific killer balancing issues, which we also covered in a video, the one where we talk about which killers should be buffed, nerfed, and so on, I think these changes would be good for the game. For the reasons earlier stated, that when you go to a match against 4 of these toolboxes, it wouldn't be a GG, it's over. And if you go in a match against 4 of these medkits, it would be hard but not impossible. And yeah, that's my idea. What do you guys think? I leave it to you now.